Welcome to the Dark Ascent podcast, where we enter into the deepest secrets of black magic and the left-hand path. This is episode 8, The Psychology of Selfishness. To learn more about our work, please visit darkascent.org. Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast. As always, I am Melektoth, and I am here with the most wonderful Elinara.
Hi! I couldn't resist being so happy. You should say that every time.
Oh. So, today we are talking about, which is kind of funny with our introduction, selfishness and the psychology of selfishness.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't even... That's awesome.
That's good. I didn't even intend that. But yeah, we're talking about selfishness. And what is the role of selfishness on the left-hand path? You know, a lot of people say that those into Satanism or any sort of left-hand path tradition, I don't want to say religion, but you know what I mean, philosophy or tradition or path, are naturally selfish and that they just serve their own self-interests. And of course they say that as if it's a bad thing. So what is this all about selfishness? Is it a bad thing? Is it true that left-hand path practitioners are selfish? And that's what we're going to unwrap today. So there seems to be this near universal taboo against selfishness. I think, you know, this is almost probably worldwide. I'm sure it depends on the culture, and in some places it's different from others. And I've heard that in the West we're even more individualistic than other countries. So I think in other countries it's even more so. Like in Japan, for example, I think it's in Japan or maybe in Asia in general, they have the expression that, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but a nail that is raised up will be hammered back down, meaning that if you distinguish yourself in any way, that it's sort of a bad thing if you stand out from the group. So even there's even more of a taboo against selfishness. But even here in the United States, for example, where, you know, we talk all about the American dream and so on, it's still sort of taboo to say that someone's selfish or that's a bad thing somehow. So it's this contradiction we have between the right to be happy and to prosper and to have all the things we want and to succeed versus this thing that we shouldn't be selfish. Right, and this is really a big issue, in my opinion, especially in spiritual circles.
Mm-hmm. Especially the light and fluffy ones.
Oh, yes. So, for example, there's something with, you know, magic or psychic abilities or healing where you shouldn't charge for it because reasons, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. And, you know, I'm a healer, so I understand it, and I think some people take it too far with the charging.
Yeah.
And I think you have to understand, I grew up in a Christian home, in a Christian family where we did healing on each other all the time for free, you know.
Sure.
So charging for me was weird. I'm like, this is not...
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I get the concept of it, too.
Right.
But then I've heard of people that charge thousands of dollars, and that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a balance, and it still kind of irks me that I'm putting my hands on someone and charging. Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, that's the taboo.
Yeah, it is.
So that's, I think, something we have to unravel a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too specific yet, so I'll take a step back for a few minutes and just ask, why is it, in general, that being selfish is bad? And even more so I was certified in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which is basically a set of psychological techniques and tools for manipulating your subconscious mind. And in NLP, we have something called meta model.
Oh, you love this.
I love meta models. And so the meta model is this idea that we can't take on all the information we try to entirely. So we distort it. There are distortions. We generalize the information we take in. We distort the information we take in. We delete information we take in. Those are the three different types. And so a lot of the information we have isn't really accurate. And so you look for this missing information. So when someone says it's bad to be selfish, a meta model sort of response is something like, according to whom? Who says? Do you know what I mean? Like, who says selfishness is bad? Well, it's just bad. Well, how do you know? Who says that selfishness is bad? So when you question those sort of preconceived notions, where it's just something that's true, you just received that knowledge from society, then that's something that's worthy of questioning. And that's really what we're here to do in general, is just to question what we're doing, right? To question the beliefs that we have. So who says selfishness is bad? Why is that? And someone might say something as simple as, it's just, usually people will avoid it. It's better to serve other people. Okay. You're just shifting
it's the same thing.
It's the same
according
thing.
To whom?
Right. According to whom? Why? Why is it better to serve someone else? There's not really an answer to it, because, it's just something you received. Maybe you received it from your parents. Maybe you received it from society, from school, from other people, whatever. You received it somewhere, right? There was, this is a great example. I knew I wanted to tell this story, but I wasn't sure where. So there is the story about a nanny who is teaching these children, okay, and taking care of these children. And it's around Christmas time, and she's reading them stories. This is a lot of the place that beliefs come from, so this is why it's a good story. But she's reading these stories to these children about being selfless, and it's better to give than to receive, and all this stuff, right? And so she thinks that the children are taking on this concept. And so she's pretty happy about that. And the parents come home, and the one child, which I think he's like 6 years old, starts kind of grilling the mother about all the toys he wants for Christmas. I want this, I want this, I want this, and I want this. And the nanny says, well, wait a second, remember what we learned today about it's better to give than to receive. Do you remember this?
A little bit, but I don't remember the
end. Okay,
end.
This is a true story. And the boy says, yes, and I'm giving her a chance to be happy by giving to me. I'm giving her that opportunity to give. So,
that was turned on its head.
Yeah, so...
Smart kid, though. Really smart kid.
So I feel like children sort of get this idea until it's drilled into their head, until it's programmed into them, that this isn't necessarily true, right? This isn't something that they have by default. Okay, it's something they're taught. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing entirely, but it's something that they're taught. It's not something they have by default. And you can see that in this sort of story where, he's saying, oh, okay, here's this idea that, talk about such a little black magician.
Kids are, though.
Like, I want Christmas toys. Oh, wait, it's better to give than to receive. So if she gives, then that's good for her, and I can receive, so it's win-win. Like, you just see the logic.
Oh my God. That is so awesome.
So, that's what I mean about questioning these things. Where does it come from? And it usually comes from somewhere exactly like that. You read a story. You have all this moralizing a lot of times in kids shows.
Oh God.
Or in school or whatever. And so that's a lot of times where it happens. So who says selfishness is bad? Now, once you don't have an answer for that, that might be a bit uncomfortable. Like, who says selfishness is bad? And a lot of times people will get sort of upset about this. Like, well, it's just, I want to be a good person. And so we have all these concepts tied up into selfishness versus selflessness and service, about being a good person. And so we can even unravel this further. And I don't want to go too far because it gets off topic, but this is something you can do. It's just continue to unravel this. What does it mean to be a good person? What does that mean? Well, and then I can hear someone, our metaphorical person, saying, well, it means to help others. Okay, well, now we're back at square one. Why does that mean that you're a good person? Why do you want to be a good person? It's hard. And especially when you disconnect it from any sort of religious background. So a Christian might say, well, I have to be good so that I can get into heaven. So I can receive a reward after death.
Even Muslims do it. Like, when we were studying Islam, oh, we get all these rewards if we do all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And remember your cane?
Oh, yeah.
Tell the story.
Yeah, so my cane had broken. I'm visually impaired, so we have a white cane, and it had broken. And we were with these Muslims. We were studying a bit of Islam at the time. And so it had broken, and, everyone was...
They tried to fix it first.
Yeah, they were trying to fix it. Now we have a lot of doctors, a few engineers, so these are smart people, largely from Pakistan, some from other places. Egypt, one was from, I think. They were trying to fix my cane, but it wasn't happening. So then they're basically arguing amongst themselves of who's going to get to buy me a new cane. And so, they're arguing amongst themselves who's going to get me to buy me a new cane. And it's like, they're saying, I mean, I don't know if they said it right then, but they said a lot of times that the more good they do, the more that they're rewarded.
And about 5 different people.
Yeah.
I'll buy it. And they were fighting.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of cute.
They were like negotiating with each other. No. You can get something next time. I'll get it this one. Like, it was just hilarious. It was really funny. So, religious people have this fallback of, well, I do good so that God will be pleased with me and I can get into heaven and whatever. Right? So that's that. But let's say we throw those stories away. Okay? Those are sort of, I don't mean to be rude, but fables, right? We don't need those. That's a silly reason to be good, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't have those religious fables, what is the incentive? And this reminds me of sort of a religious argument for why you should have religion. Is they sort of say like an atheist or someone who's not religious wouldn't have any reason to be good or be moral if they didn't have religion. But these questions need to be asked. So what would be your reason? Let's say if you don't have religion to fall back on, if you don't have heaven or whatever. Okay, so number 2, let's say you say karma. I get good karma if I'm good. Okay, so now we have a vague concept built on top of a vague concept. So what's karma? That's just sort of another fable. So let's throw that out because we have no proof for it. We have just religious texts. Okay, let's throw out karma. Now what's your reason? Why are you a good person? Why do you have to be a good person? And by the way, this does not mean you shouldn't be. It's just a question. So when I'm asking these questions, it's just saying, question it. Doesn't mean you have to change behavior, but question why you're doing what you're doing. There's no point to an unexamined life. Who was it? Was that Socrates that said that?
I wouldn't have any idea.
One of them. But an unexamined life isn't worth living. So why is it, beyond religious reasons, beyond karma, why is it that you would be a good person? And beyond that, you sort of, I really think you'd kind of come up blank. Besides, you might come up with things like it feels good to, help others sometimes, right? You get to some of the core reasons, okay? But what does it mean to be a good person? It's just this vague, amorphous concept that no one really knows what it means, or everyone has a different idea of what it means. So that's something to challenge yourself with. I'm not saying what the resolution for that is, because it just depends on you, and I don't want to guide you through that when I'm not knowing what your answers are. But what does it mean to be a good person? And what does that concept mean to you? Right? So those are, just why it's worth questioning yourself. Okay? Why it's worth questioning these beliefs you hold dear that you may be built on religious ideas or ideas of karma or whatever else, ideas of reward or whatever, And in fact, later in the podcast, I will hint at a few of the deeper reasons, but I'm going to leave that for you to ponder on right now, and then we'll get back to that later. So again, the question is, why is being selfish so bad? And I honestly think it's not. It's really not so bad. Now, when we think of selfishness, we think of people being greedy, we think of people taking for themselves and hurting others. And certainly I'm not necessarily talking about these sorts of things. In fact, I think that this would actually hurt you more than anything. I think this is more about instant gratification rather than true selfishness, right? Someone who's really selfish, who's looking out for their own self-interest, isn't going to do that because, let's say, to be greedy and to take something from someone else is going to hurt relations with that person, which will remove that person as an ally for later on, right? So that is really hurting you. So when I'm talking about selfishness, it's not necessarily that. It's just about what do you want? And why is it that it's necessarily better to help others?
Because in even helping others, you're being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes you feel good to do that. So you're being selfish anyway.
Right, that's the big thing. So my conclusion here is that there's actually no such thing as selflessness. Selflessness is a comfortable lie that we tell ourselves in order to feel better about ourselves.
Yep.
I'm going to say that again because I think that's really huge. Selflessness is a lie that we tell ourselves in order to feel better about ourselves. And so what does that mean? That means everything you do has a selfish motive. I promise you, I guarantee you, everything you do has a selfish motive. So, all right, let me outline this. Let's say you're a religious person. Let's say you're a Christian or a Muslim or Hindu or any religious person in the world. But we have to modify your God a little bit, okay? So instead of this God who will reward good behavior and punish bad behavior, or reward belief and punish non-belief, instead, here's the actual case. I'm not saying this is real, just this is our hypothetical example. So you come to find out that, in fact, you will not be rewarded for your good behavior or your belief, okay? Ooh. So here's the circumstance. You're told you must believe in this one true God. You must do what he says. You must follow, let's say, the 10 Commandments. You must do the things you should do. You must help others. And you must, let's say, go to church every week and so on and so forth. And if you do these things, you get absolutely nothing. No promise of reward in heaven. No promise of a happier life. No promise of good karma. Nothing. Now that might be okay if you at least had a promise of nothing bad happening if you did the opposite. But if you don't do these things, if you don't go to church every week and don't follow the 10 Commandments and you don't believe in the one true God and you don't do any of that and you don't observe, you get no negative consequences.
Ooh.
Now, like none. No rewards if you do the right thing and no punishments if you do the wrong thing. How many followers do you think this religion will have?
None?
I won't say quite none because some people I think are so sick, so programmed that they'll probably do it anyway. But I think it'll be very, 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 very few.
How many murderers would we have running loose?
That's the thing. I doubt really any different.
You have a point.
Because
those that do it don't care.
This really is the case.
Yeah, it is.
Right, so
and it's this, the thing is, like, I don't know. It's a very interesting concept because, like, they always teach you in psychology that you reward positive behavior and ignore negative behavior. Mm-hmm. But does it really matter?
And that's what religion is for, sort of in a spiritual sense, where they're trying to, it's the carrot and the stick. They're trying to tell you that if you do the right thing, you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. Mm. If you do the wrong thing, you'll be punished in the afterlife. But let's say none of those were true. And you wouldn't be rewarded if you do the right thing. You wouldn't be punished if you do the wrong thing. Some people would do it anyway because their own idea of I did the right thing is enough, and their own shame of I did the wrong thing is enough of a deterrent where they might still do it anyway, but that's still selfishness. Mm-hmm. So I guarantee if tomorrow they realized in the Bible it actually says, no, you will have no heaven and no hell or no anything, no reward, no blessing, no curse from God, people would fall away very quickly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because there'd be no point. So religious people are selfish. That's just the fact of it.
That is so interesting. That is so interesting, but it's so true.
Right? These people that say that they are all pious and no, they're selfish. Not saying that's a bad thing. Everyone's selfish, but they're selfish too.
I've learned to be more selfish, actually.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's one example. Same thing for a Hindu, if you have no good karma, no bad karma, whatever. Same thing, right? So, why does someone help someone? And as Elinara alluded to, that you help someone because of the good feeling it gives you. You help someone because you get a feeling, I did the right thing. I enjoyed that. I helped someone, whatever.
If you want a true example of selfishness, just get a dog.
Yeah. Right.
Seriously. They'll do things just because you give them treats.
Yep, sure.
What do you think would happen if you never trained it, you never rewarded it, or didn't reward it? You would have a monster on your hands.
Sure. Yeah, so that everyone's selfish. Everyone is selfish. Now, here's the thing. Most people just don't admit that. If we all admitted that no one really is selfless, everyone is selfish, then we would have much healthier relationships because we would not have any delusion that the other person, I'm not saying they don't care for us, obviously there is caring, but there's caring because what does it do when you love someone else? It makes you feel good.
Well then.
Right?
True.
If you loved someone and you didn't get any sense of good feeling from loving that person, you wouldn't do it. If it hurt to love them,
then you wouldn't.
You wouldn't do it. You always get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Even with, I don't mean to bring up a sensitive situation, but even with someone who's in an abusive relationship.
Ooh, yeah, that's tough.
Okay, you think, okay, how could they not be selfless? Because you have a person who is in a situation where, I'm just saying she, because it's usually women, unfortunately, who are in these situations, where she loves the other person, she wants the best for them, and she makes every excuse for them, and yet she gets hurt over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Why? How is that not selfless? I'll tell you why. Because, number one, there's immense shame about leaving that person. Immense shame. That's a deterrent. She doesn't want to feel shame, therefore selfish. Okay, again, I'm not saying this is bad. This is our natural state. If you could admit that selfishness is natural, there would be no issue here. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, she usually thinks that if she could just get through to him, he will change and then he will love her. So there's hope for reward. Selfish, right? Yep. There's hope for reward. So those two things put together, and I'm sure there are many other elements, but those two things put together is more than enough reason.
And usually she'll say that she loves him.
Yeah. She loves him. She wants him to be happy. She wants him to love her.
Sure.
Right? You know how many clients I've had who have wanted this one specific person who just want this person to love them back? Right? That's a very powerful force. So that's selfishness. Okay, so even that, something that seems really, really selfless, is selfish. Everything. And so if we could grasp that the person we're communicating with is above all, even if they won't admit it, interested in themselves, we would get by a lot more easily. So for example, this is a perfect thing. In the beginning, when I said that about Elinara, the most wonderful Elinara, and she sort of lit up and that was sort of a selfish response, right? Like, oh, like that felt good to hear that, I'm sure. And
he never does that.
No.
Just so you know.
Bad me. But, and that kind of thing is, like if she looks forward to that or gets that response, and if I were to do that, let's say, then that is communicating more easily with the other person because I'm giving her what she wants. And by giving her what she wants, let's say I can get what I want.
It reminds me of the book How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Exactly right. I was going to lead into that possibly.
Sorry.
No, it's good because he says talk about the other person. There's nothing people are interested in so much as themselves.
Oh yeah, and it's true.
So, and he even says use their name, like say their name. Use their name in conversation because people love their name.
Wait staff love it.
Yeah, Elinara does it all the time. And so, and talk about them. Like, just listen and just let them talk. And, you know, several examples I've heard where someone just basically listened and basically didn't say anything. And the other person at the end said, "Oh, you're such a good conversationalist." And it's like, I didn't say anything.
There was a book, and I love the chicken soup books.
Yeah.
And there was a story, and I don't remember which edition it was in, where I think it was this lady was on a train or something, and this man sat next to her and just talked and talked and talked and talked.
Yeah.
And by the end of the conversation, she didn't really say much. You could tell he felt better, And he said, "Thank you for listening."
Yep.
And it's just that he needed somebody just to dump on.
Yep.
And it wasn't even as much that, it was he was lonely and wanted to, teach her something about, I don't know, train tracks or something. Right. He was giving a history.
Right.
But then he led into other things. And it changed his life.
Yeah. So if you could understand that everyone you come into contact with is selfish, and that doesn't mean a bad thing, it means that they have their own self-interest, then if you fed into that, you get so much further.
Oh, yeah. And then they'll give it to you in return.
Right.
Probably.
Like, if you, let's say, compliment others, right? And you do that regularly, they're going to think you're a nice person. And I'm not saying you're not, but they're going to see you as a nice person and be more open with you, and you'll get further. Even like, and this wasn't like intentional or anything, but the person who does our podcast, who edits them, one of the sets of show notes I thought was especially good. It was for episode 5 about the satanic imagery. And I told him, I said, I thought those show notes were especially good this time. And it's hard, I will admit, it's hard to give compliments because it's sort of a vulnerable thing where we sort of think, oh, it's silly, they don't care what I think, No, they always do, because when you give someone a compliment, it's about them, you're validating them, and it means a lot. And so I did that, and he seemed really appreciative about my compliment, And that wasn't intended, I wasn't trying to prove a point or anything, I was just thinking about that. And, but he seemed to really appreciate that.
Well, sure. And some people are really good at complimenting.
Right.
I try to, just because I know how important it is.
Right.
And, and not everyone responds to compliments. It just depends,
I think the only reason is because a lot of people are uncomfortable because they think it's selfish to accept them.
Yeah. My dad is like that. He's very humble.
Yeah.
And he gets very uncomfortable. And it's really kind of cute.
Right. But I think everyone likes compliments.
Oh, secretively, yeah.
I had a piano teacher in college.
This is a good story.
Who, one of those like stereotypically strict Russian piano teachers. Okay, she was Russian. And never received a compliment. I never did. And now I am, not to toot my own horn, but I'm quite an accomplished pianist. Like I've won lots and lots of competitions. I was on track. I was a piano major in school, and I was on track to be in a piano concerto competition, which is a really big thing. But just this person never complimented me. And I got, the school I went to was a really good music school. Like it's really hard to get in there. I knew a few people who did not get in, even after several attempts. And anyway, but she never complimented me. So I had this idea that I must be really horrible in her eyes. Like I must just be stinking. And so it came to the point where it wasn't because of this, it was because of a lot of other factors, but it came to the point where I had to transfer out. I had to quit music school. And I told her, and she was flabbergasted. She's like, Melektoth, obviously she used my real name, but she's like, Melektoth, you don't understand. You are better than a lot of my graduate students. I said, what? I'm thinking, it would have helped a lot if you told me that sometimes. She's like, you can't quit. You're a lot better than some of my graduate students and all this stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh. And then when I finally did quit, I actually quit twice. So I quit and then went back for a while and quit again. But she said, look, you can't just go to a regular piano teacher somewhere. You have to get someone that's actually good, because you'll waste your talent. And here I am. I don't even play anymore.
I miss you playing.
She would murder me if she knew.
She would.
Yeah.
I wonder if she's still there.
I don't know. But, yeah.
I don't want to toot my own horn either, but I may as well tell a story.
All right. We'll be selfish together.
Yeah, let's do it. So, I'm a singer, okay, and I was the music director for a church. But in this particular case, I was asked by one of the funeral home directors to do the music for a service. It was a Christmas service, but it wasn't on Christmas. It was a holiday service for all of those that died in the past year. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I had to accompany myself and play the piano too, because the organist at this particular church was not that great. Anyway, so I did DA008 by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and I didn't think anything of it. I'd performed it, I don't know, a good 10, 15 times maybe. And so I didn't think much about it. And after the service, this lady, she's an old woman. And you know how old ladies take 10 minutes to tell a story. Mm-hmm. I will not take 10 minutes. But
so you're an old lady, basically, because you do that all the time.
Hey! I just dug a grave just now. Dug a hole. Anyway, so she, to make a very long story short, told me that piece by Weber, the DA008, was something that she had always wanted at her funeral, but no one was worthy of singing it, so she was going to have the recording of it play, mm-hmm. except for me. Mm-hmm. I was the only person, and she'd heard it performed a lot. I was the only person that she would ever let do it at her funeral. That's how good it was. Mm-hmm. And I was flabbergasted, because I'm very careful with my Latin pronunciation and my singing, but I haven't been trained in a long time. Mm-hmm. So I just thought it was, I don't mean average in a bad way, but I didn't think it was like, like that. And she's a musician too, so it's not like she's just someone off the street. But I was just like, wow. Like, I was just doing what I love to do. Yeah. And I felt so good after that. So compliments are very important. And yes, I was gloating for a while.
Of course.
But you know what? I didn't feel bad about it. And I told her, when you die, I'll do your funeral. I don't care where I'm living. I will come back and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think in a sense you can see almost that when you come from the perspective that, you know what, everyone's selfish. Yeah. So I'll give them what they want, and it'll make them feel good, and I can get what I want. Yep. And you're going to almost, in a sense, you're going to be more selfless in appearance. Yeah. You're going to be happier. They're going to be happier. It's mutually beneficial.
And this lady that talked to me was extremely selfish, mm-hmm. because she's picky. Yeah. And to me, that's great, to be that picky and, selfish. It really was.
Right. So I think that is, when you admit to yourself you're selfish, and that's okay, and that so is everyone else, even if they will make a whole song and dance about being selfless and altruistic and whatnot. They're really not. No one is. No one is. So when you can admit that, then I think you have better interpersonal skills, because you're coming at it from the truth of things. Everyone's selfish. Yep. Right? I had one more example. I swear I'll move on, but
who cares?
I'm a programmer, is my full-time job, and there's a lady at work, and we've gotten to be pretty close friends. Now, I work remotely, and she works in the office, and this is like how many hundreds of miles away in Rhode Island, and I'm in Pennsylvania. And so, we're not like in person close, but we've met several times. I've gone up there, and
I think I know who you're talking about.
She's really nice. Of course you do. Yeah. She's really nice though. Anyway, so she was posting this morning. We use Slack, which is like a company-wide chat sort of thing. People who use it will know what it is, who work in companies like that. But anyway, we use Slack, and she was posting. She's working from home today because she has a leak in her sink, and the plumber has to come, and she's like, not really something you want your new sink to do, or something like that. And for programmers, we have a joke, and technical people will know this, that a bug, there's no really such thing as bugs. They're just unintended features. right? So I replied to her and I said, I was like, oh, no, 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 that's just an unintended feature. That's all. And she responded and said, thanks for making me laugh. I really needed that this week. Now, I had no intention. It was just sort of a joke that came to mind, but, that made her feel better. But I think, honestly, the reason I was able to do that with her is because she has been so nice to me in the past, and so she's been the one above all to make the attempt to make me feel included, even though I'm a remote worker. So I feel more open to joke with her in that sort of way. So it's just this sort of mutually beneficial thing, even little things like that. Do you know what I mean? So like that's why this sort of thing is important.
Yeah.
So again, that's why I'm not talking about greed. I'm not talking about stealing for yourself or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just genuinely having your own self-interest at heart, because you do anyway. Now, why would that not lead to greed and so on? I'll tell you why. Because basically, when you really embrace this type of philosophy, and it really is a philosophy, but it's truth too, because I mean it's just fact. Everyone's selfish, right? It's society that tells us we shouldn't be, and so we try to add this selfless veneer upon ourselves, but it's just that, a veneer, right? And so selfishness is at the heart of it. But when you accept that, then, and you also accept the principle that you can have anything you want. So the basic left-hand path principle, the basic black magical principle, that you can, and not only can, but should have anything you want. And not only should, but that the universe will happily serve you in bringing you whatever you want. Then selfishness is natural, and it is actually beneficial to you and to others. Now, someone who is greedy is in a mindset of me against the world, where I have to take what I want because others will not give it to me. They're closing themselves off from the magic that flows through all things. And so when they do that, then not only are they selfish, which they are anyway, they're just stupid, because they're closing themselves off to the natural abundance of existence. And they believe that the only way they can get what they want is by forcefully taking it from others, by ripping it from nature. I am a true believer in the Tao. I believe in the Tao Te Ching. In fact, I mentioned this in the first Circle of Darkness newsletter, which already went out. But I mentioned about my belief in Taoism, because it's just been in every part of my life, right? So I believe, even though being a black magician, again, this is sometimes seems contradictory, but it's not. But I believe that being in harmony with the Tao, at least most of the time, is the best and fastest way to get what you want. Because when you really know what you want and you go at it with intention, then the Tao or the flow or whatever you wish to call it will 100% bring you that thing on a platter. On a silver platter, it will bring you that thing. And so there's no need to fight the universe. There's no need to rip it out from someone else, rip it away from someone else or out from nature, There's just no need. The way of forcefulness, the whole Tao Te Ching is all about the folly of believing that force can do anything. They talk all about how, like, a tree that bends with the wind will be a lot stronger than a tree that stands stiff and inflexible. That kind of tree will fall over. It'll break, right? I can't give you a chapter number exactly, but I know that's in there. But
it's somewhere.
It's somewhere.
Do a search.
But, when you try to forcefully take what you want, you're working against the Tao, against the flow of things, against the natural abundance of the universe. And that flow, or that Tao, is so prevalent, so huge, that you standing against it is basically like, just it won't work. Trying to stand against a flood.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to stand against a flood. You're not going to be able to do it. You'll just get bowled over. But when you approach it with intention and you actually know what you want and are aligned with that, then you work in harmony with it because you know that it will happily bring you what you want. Okay? So this goes for everything, in a relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship or a business relationship or whatever. If you approach that relationship with the mindset of, I have to get what I want no matter what it does to the other person, you're cutting yourself off from the flow of things. And so really both people are going to leave feeling not so great. Even if you end up getting what you want, it's not really going to end up that good for you because you've cut yourself off. So someone who believes they have to be greedy or violent or unethical, whatever, and you could ask what unethical means, but whatever that means to you, who believes they have to take advantage of others or whatever to get what they want, they're just really shooting themselves in the foot. They're really just, they're believing in inherent lack, which is not how things are, rather than inherent abundance. Right? So that is just stupid, to cut yourself off like that. But when you can embrace the natural abundance of things and realize that to complement another or to work with another towards a common goal can often be the quickest way to get what you want, then you're going to end up happy. You're going to walk away happy. Right? So that brings me to my final point, is that, and Elinara and I have had endless discussions on this point, but that is that there's no need for sacrifice or for compromise. Those two things, how many times have I said, I don't believe in sacrifice, I don't believe in compromise, right? Because when you allow those concepts to enter into a relationship, you are basically saying, you know what? I actually don't believe in the abundance of things. I believe I have to shut off what I really want so that someone else can be happy. But it's really selfish because if they're happy, then maybe I'll get something else I want. But it's not really the whole thing I want. It's just this whole mixed up thing.
And is sacrifice even a real thing? If you really think about it.
Right, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I mean, it really isn't.
No.
You think it is and you fool yourself.
Yep.
But it's not.
You're really just cutting yourself off, though.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work. So I've heard of a lot of examples where, and even in our own relationship there have been, where two people want seemingly different things.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had this where Elinara says, I want this, and I say, I want that. And we say, well, that stinks because we want opposite things. They can't possibly work together. What do we do? And Elinara, you have to understand, Elinara is, even though everyone's selfish, the most unselfish, selfish person in the world.
You can say that I'm the most selfish person in the world.
But what I mean is that you're the most giving, the most compassionate person in the world.
You're embarrassing me.
But it's true, though. So she will, if there's a conflict of interests, she will immediately say, oh, don't worry, I won't do the thing I want. And I've had to kind of, I don't want to say train her out of it, but you know what I mean, kind of encourage her out of that pattern because it just hurts yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens and she's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. I won't, I'll sacrifice what I want. And a good example is moving to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And it was tough for Elinara because she was in her hometown in New York, Western New York, where we were. She was in her hometown near her family. It felt like a sacrifice to her. Now,
maybe at first.
Yeah, well, it did. You told me on several occasions that you were really sad. You had to leave a job that you enjoyed and leave your family and so on. Now, I'm a black magician. I have a really strong will, more so than I think her sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I'm getting there, though.
And I knew because we had been to a psychic together who even confirmed my suspicions. And I mean, a really good psychic.
You mean a tarot reader?
Yes, a tarot reader. Thank you. So psychic and intuitive, whatever.
I don't know. I feel like I don't want to. I like saying exactly what she does.
Yeah, she's a tarot reader.
Go
But
ahead.
she gave a really good tarot reading for both of us and confirmed that the move would be like the most amazing thing ever. And anyway, but even before that, I just knew that we had, because when you make a big decision, you sort of have to override inertia.
Yeah.
Inertia. I mean, we'd been living there for 5.5 years, and it was comfortable. Even for me, it was just comfortable. It was like, yeah, it's not that bad, you know. And so I had a very strong will where I was like, you know, I think this is going to be for the best. And she went along with it. And sometimes I felt bad because I knew she was having trouble with it. But I also knew it was for the best for us. And, you know, now we moved. And I think for both of us,
Yeah.
it's been so much better. It's been so much better. It gives both of us the freedom we need to be who we are.
And it's what I needed and I didn't know it.
Right.
And Melektoth is so much happier.
Yeah.
I mean, and I hope you don't mind if I say this, but he has really bad anxiety problems. Or
I do.
Did. And in Olean, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And he only had one panic attack in a month.
Yeah, about a month
And that's not normal for him. So
no, it's usually like a few times a week.
like just seeing him happy makes me happy, and I know that I'll find my niche too, but I think I'm just trying to figure out who I am, because being around a very religious mother, really, because my dad couldn't care less really what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, to an extent, at least to more of an extent, you know. But I live next door to my mom, and she's very religious, and, you know, I had to do a lot of pretending.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would have been awkward.
Yep. Yeah, so we both found a lot of things that we wanted here that have helped us a lot more than where we were. And so, you know, it's been really good for both of us. So we talked a couple weeks ago about quantum uncertainty and the power of just not knowing. And so I think when you try to have two separate desires, it could be something as simple as, I've heard of this example before, like let's say one person says, oh, I want to live on the beach, and another person says, I want to live in the mountains. Like those seem like two really contradictory desires, right? But, you know, and for each person there's this kind of pressure, this societal pressure, as I'm talking about, to sort of give in to the other person. Like, well, I want them to be happy, so I'll give in and give up my desire. And no. And this is what I'm saying. You never, ever, ever have to give up your desire. Nor should you, nor would that be smart, nor would you get any good karma out of it. Nothing. Don't do it. So that's something like that where it seems totally at odds.
Live on the beach in the mountains. There you go.
Sure, that'll work. But no, so just, I don't want to go too deeply into it, but a desire is really just a representation of an emotion that you want.
So how does that even work if you have two completely different desires?
So someone in the mountains could be really wanting to live away from civilization, or to live kind of secluded, or to, you know, have a beautiful scenery or something like that. And someone who wants to live on the beach could want to live near water, or to whatever that represents for them. Do you see what I mean? So it's like, it's elements, and this is just the name they give it. Oh, this, I want this, that means I want to live on the beach, or this means I want to live in the mountains. But anyway, I mean, I won't go into the details of it. It could resolve any number of ways. But when you hold those desires and you say, yeah, well, I want this, no, I want this, and you oppose one another, and this is what I mean about the natural abundance of the universe. Because when you say, look, I want to live on the beach, no, I want to live in the mountains, and you come at it from a surface level, it looks like someone has to compromise, or both have to compromise. Someone's going to get what they want, and this is literally a conversation we've had before. Well, I guess I have to be the one to give it up, you know, or something like that. But on the surface level, yeah, it looks like that. But if you say, okay, I have the desire to do this. Let's say to live on the beach. This is not a real desire of mine. I'm just using it as an example. I want to live near water one day, but not on the beach. I don't like sand. Anyway, I want to live on the beach, and you want to live in the mountains. And we hold these separate desires. And we also hold the intention that we want to be together, obviously. And we don't know. There's your uncertainty. We don't know how it'll get resolved. But the natural state of the flow of the Tao is abundance. So it will. There's a way, or else we wouldn't be in each other's realities, and we wouldn't have the desires we have. There's a way for our individual desires and our collective desire to be in a relationship, for that to be fulfilled. There's a way. And then when you drop that, you say, I just don't know. You create uncertainty. The path to fulfillment, to fruition, to manifestation will create itself and present itself to you. Every time, I guarantee it. And I've seen this for us repeatedly, where a lot of times spiritually, one person says, well, this is my interest, and the other person says, well, this is my interest, and they seem at odds. And then lately we've been like merging, and nothing has really changed. It's just we're finding the meeting point of our individual desires. There were some times in our marriage where we didn't think we could both be happy. There are times I questioned whether we could even work together. Yeah. But I had this deep knowingness that we had to, that we were meant, I hate to say meant, but if you knew how we met, maybe that's a story of another day, you know that we were totally meant for each other. But so there had to be a way. I knew there had to be a way for our individual desires and our very strong desires to be reconciled. There was a way. And that way generated itself. And it took a while. It still is. It took a while because of our stubbornness sometimes, or just belief that it couldn't happen, or whatever. But it happened. Yep, and it is happening. So I'm saying, be selfish even in a relationship. Because if you're selfish enough to hold your desire, and your partner is selfish enough to hold their desire, there will be a way that's worked out.
And don't feel bad about it. Just really embrace your selfishness.
Right. Embrace your selfishness.
Because it works. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And both of you will be happy. So when you're really, truly selfish enough to want what you want and to have what you have, what you want to have, and to do what you want to do, then I'm telling you, heaven and earth will move itself. Like, I always thought it was so powerful, the passage in the Gospels where Jesus said, if you have faith as a mustard seed and you tell this mountain to move, or to, be thrown into the sea or whatever, it will go. And that's sort of how it is. But it's only when, if you're sort of wishy-washy about your desire, it's like, well, maybe, but should I really? Nothing's going to move. This is Magic 101. Right? Nothing's going to move if you're wishy-washy about your desire, because it's like, well, if you don't really know you want what you want, then why should the universe care? Why should the forces of creation care? Right? But if you say, yes, I want and I will have whatever it is, then again, heaven and earth will move itself to fulfill every last word of your desire, every last detail. And we'll do it in a way where you are happy and your partner, if applicable, is happy. Everyone else involved is happy. But guess what? That's not your concern. If you're trying, a teacher, she's extreme right-hand path, but she has some good stuff. Byron Katie. She says there are 3 types of business: my business, your business, and God's business. And by God, she's not a religious person. She just means like reality, or like the world, right? And that's true, because if I'm worried about you being happy, and she also says a relationship, it only takes one person to have a happy relationship. And so if I'm worried about you being happy, I'm not making myself be happy, so it's not going to work. I'm sort of having mixed energy here and not really going full force for what I want, so we're both going to be unhappy. But if I'm dead set on me being happy, right, then the universe will move. I will get what I want, and so will my partner. if she is also doing the same thing. But that's up to her, right? And so that's been my philosophy in marriage, and it's worked. And sometimes it didn't seem like it would work, but it worked. So, I mean, that's, I don't mean to get off topic, but that's selfishness.
It is.
But if you really commit yourself to it, it'll work. But you have to commit yourself to it. You have to commit yourself to it. So that for you is all I have to say on selfishness.
Maybe not all.
Maybe not all, but it's going to be all for today. So, it's a big topic, and I encourage you to explore this, to question, as I've said.
Ask us questions if you have them.
Yeah. And also to question yourself. Why is it so bad to be selfish?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have to be, a quote unquote good person? What does that even mean? Okay, so don't worry about so much about being a good person. Just worry about being a happy, fulfilled person.
Yes.
Because a happy, fulfilled person will have a happy, fulfilled life. And therefore, everyone around you you won't, when you're happy and fulfilled, that will never naturally take advantage of another. Okay? It just won't. That's only when you're disconnected and you're trying to force things that you want to happen. Right? It doesn't work that way. But when you are in the flow because you're having your intention, being in the flow doesn't mean you're surrendering to the will of the universe or God or something. It means you have your will, but you're also in harmony with the Tao and committed to your own selfishness. And it will be for the best for everyone, but that's not your concern. So don't worry about it. And that's what it means. So hopefully it gives you a lot to think about. There's a lot to unpack here, but I hope it helps. And I appreciate you listening. So, by the way, we have another newsletter going out soon. So if you want to sign up for the Circle of Darkness, where you can learn even more about black magic, about the left-hand path, especially about the philosophy of the left-hand path, as we've been talking about here, and how to apply that to your everyday life, then check out darkascent.org/circle. So I appreciate you listening to our podcast. If you want to see the show notes or leave a comment, we always love your comments. You can go to darkascent.org/DA008. And so we are here every Friday at the same time with another episode of the Dark Ascent podcast. So we hope to see you next week as well. Thank you as always for listening.
Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful week and day. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.